What's up, everyone? Sam here from Byte.com, and in this video, I want to share with you specific strategies for how to avoid burnout in your career. And this is going to be so valuable because I see so many software engineers struggling with this. They keep working so hard that they end up in this burnt out state, and then they have a lot of trouble recovering from that. So I'm not a professional in mental health, and I can't really help you with what to do once you get burnt out, but I want to share with you some specific strategies that have worked for me for identifying and avoiding burnout before it happens. And if you want tons more videos just like this, go ahead and give us a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and hit that notification bell and we'll let you know whenever we release new videos. So before we talk about how to avoid burnout, we need to be really clear on what exactly is burnout, right? Because burnout is different than just normal lack of excitement about our job. It's not waking up in the morning and saying like, oh, I don't want to go to work, right? It's something deeper than that. It's something deeper than working on projects that we're not excited about, not getting along with our team, any of those things. It's really, Healthline.com describes severe physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. Right? It's that real deep exhaustion, which leads to basically apathy about everything that we're doing. It's hard to get excited about really much of anything in our work or any other place in our life. And so that's what we're trying to avoid. It's really characterized by that lack of excitement, fatigue, almost depression-like symptoms. And so we really want to keep a close eye out for as any of these symptoms are starting to develop so that we can proactively avoid this. Again, once you're burnt out, it can be really hard to come back from, and that's where you'd really want to talk to a psychologist to try and get a more professional opinion. But what I want to show you in this video is strategies that have worked for me and a lot of other people to avoid the burnout before it gets to that point. So how do we avoid burnout? Well, I'm going to give you 4 specific strategies that you can use to try and avoid burnout in your work. So you really want to use these proactively, even if you're not starting to feel burnt out, but they become even more important if you start experiencing any of these burnout symptoms. And so the first thing that I want you to do is look at how you can find real meaning in your work. Most people don't really think a lot about this. They focus mostly on just what I'm doing day to day. How do I get the job with the best salary? Where am I going to get that most prestige? And while these are important things, those aren't the things that are going to develop long-term meaning in your work. One of my favorite frameworks for thinking about meaning and thinking about what is important to me, it's called the AMP framework. And it stands for autonomy, mastery, and purpose. This comes from Dan Pink's book, Drive. And with these 3 elements, we can sort of scale our autonomy, our mastery, and our purpose to think about what are the things that are most important to us now in our careers. So autonomy, we might think about how could I find a job that is giving me the freedom to work when I want and where I want and on projects that I'm excited about. Mastery, we might be looking at how do I develop new skills? What job opportunities do I have where I'm going to get to learn new things, where I'm going to get to work with people who are true experts in their field and develop those skills? And purpose, maybe that's working at a company that has a mission that you really believe in. If you can focus on the autonomy, mastery, and purpose, it's going to help you develop deeper meaning in the work that you are doing, which is long-term going to make it a lot easier for you to handle that stress and avoid burnout in the long term. Right? If we can do something that is really meaningful to us and impactful to us, we may be stressed out at times. We're not going to avoid stress entirely, but we're going to feel like that stress is leading towards something that is beneficial, to something that we care about and that is meaningful to us, which makes a huge difference compared to being stressed out about something that we do not care about, or being stressed out about something that's just going to make us more stressed. There's this concept of the hedonic treadmill, which basically says that the more money we make, the more money we need to spend to be happy. And this is a classic example where most people, when they are looking at job opportunities, they focus on the money. They focus on that one element. And while that is relevant and important, it just creates more stress in the long term because we get more money, and so then we have to spend more to be happy. And then when we have to spend more to be happy, then we are more stressed because we need more money and our bills are higher and all of that stuff. And so if you can identify other ways, other elements of meaning in your work, that can make a huge difference towards reducing that long-term stress. Strategy number 2 is to appreciate and acknowledge your wins. This is something that I am so bad at doing personally, but I have to really force myself to do because it makes a huge difference. A lot of times we set a goal for ourselves And then what happens is that as we progress towards the goal, we keep moving the goalposts. I know this is something that I do all the time where I say, oh, I would like to get this many students into my course, or I would like to make this much money. But even before I get there, I'm already saying, oh, well, that's no longer enough. I'm going to move that goal down the field. And then what happens is I'm always working towards this goal and I'm never actually achieving it. And so while it is good to, appreciate the process and sort of spend that time and energy thinking about like, how do I enjoy the process? It also is bad because it doesn't allow me to acknowledge what I have actually accomplished. And so I want you to think about, as you are progressing in your career, are there projects where once you are finished, you're just moving on to the next thing without even acknowledging what you have accomplished? Are you just continuing to move the goalpost down the field so that you always feel inadequate? You always feel stressed about having to get to that next level without acknowledging how far you've actually come. Because think about like when you lose weight or when you go on a fitness journey in general. Day to day, it's really hard to actually see those changes. It's really hard to see because they're just such minute changes. But if you take photos over time and you look at those transformation photos over 6 months, it's like mind-blowing how much of a difference it makes. And so in the same way in your career, I want you to think about appreciating what are those wins? What is that progress that you are making? Because that's, again, going to allow you to build more meaning into your career and think about how can I feel more accomplished in the long term. Strategy number 3 is to be very intentional about taking time for yourself and focusing on your health and well-being. This is something that, especially when we're working on big projects, I know from experience, it's really easy for everything else to go by the wayside, right? You're focused on working on this project like 16 hours a day. It's that sort of trope of sleeping on the floor and getting up and immediately starting coding, eating, ordering McDonald's or pizza and just continuing for weeks and weeks and weeks. And this just wrecks your health. This just is probably the worst possible thing that you can do, but sometimes it feels like it's necessary because it feels like there's so much to do and so little time. But I promise you, if you can find time to take time for yourself, focus on your diet, get exercise, take breaks, there's a lot of evidence that you will actually be much more productive with the time that you do spend if you focus on being much more intentional about how you spend that time. So this is one of those things that is really sort of simple in concept, but hard to execute on. Because so often it feels like we don't have the time to do these things. It feels like we don't have the time to take breaks or exercise or, we need to get this work done. But if you can find the time to do that in your schedule, it's going to make you more productive in the long term. And it's going to allow you to avoid that burnout so that when you get to that point where otherwise you would be like, okay, I'm now laid out for like a month because I'm so burnt out, it's going to allow you to keep going. So ultimately, it's going to allow you to be much more effective. And finally, tip number 4, which kind of goes along with the last one, is to set clear boundaries between work and non-work. I know, again, this can be so difficult during busy times because it feels like you need to be working all the time, but as an employee, you have a right to take time off. You have a right to take vacation. And I see so many times where it's like people have unlimited vacation days, and I've literally seen cases where bosses have had to force their employees to take vacation. It can be so easy to get down this rabbit hole of like, I'm focused, I'm okay, I don't need the break. But in the long term, it really is going to negatively impact you. And so I encourage you to use the breaks and time that you have available. Use your vacation days. Use your break, take a break during the day just to clear your head a little bit. One of my favorite things to do at my old job was we were right next to a park. And so every day I would take my lunch and I would go and I would sit in the park. And then after lunch, I would go for a short walk around the park. It wasn't like I was taking 3 hours or anything like that, but it would allow me to clear my head during the day so that I could go back and be more focused for the rest of the day. Where can you identify opportunities like that to just take small breaks? Have a conversation with a fellow employee. Maybe if you have ping pong tables or whatever, you could play one game of ping pong. It's not about wasting lots of time and not doing your work, but it's about getting more productive by using your time intentionally. And there's a concept called Parkinson's law, which actually says that if you have less time, you're going to still get everything done in that time. The more time you give yourself, the more time it actually takes to complete a task. And so by focusing your time, you're going to be more productive and you're going to be able to get those breaks in so that you have sort of intense periods of work and intense periods of rest. And with that, those are my 4 tips for you. If you could apply these tips in your career, they're going to allow you to have a much more effective and long-term career rather than really getting stuck because of getting burnt out along the way. And if you are feeling really burnt out right now, I highly recommend reaching out to a counselor. Find someone to talk to who can give you real advice, someone who is qualified to give you advice and help you, because that's an incredibly valuable tool that not nearly enough people take advantage of. And so with that, that's all I got for you. If you enjoyed this video, please do give us a like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.